Every now and then I get a comment that just reminds me how chronically online I am compared to most people. Don't get me wrong, I spend most of my time reading, but I spend an almost equally large amount of time checking out what's going on in the booktube space, on fantasy forums, or specifically researching what's going on in publishing. And without question, I will not deny I have a bit of a skewed perspective on how informed your average person is on these spaces, because to me, they're just the most dominant parts of pop culture, but I don't think that actually kind of stands the test of reality. But I figured the least I could do if I'm putting so much effort towards kind of staying up to date on these specific topics is, if a question arises, answer it for you as concisely as possible in a video. And one comment in particular sparked this specific video. It was left on the last episode of Fantasy News and was in regards to a section of that episode of Fantasy News about how specifically Amazon was actually devaluing not only all of its Kindles, but every single ebook published through its platform, which we will eventually get into and hear in this video as well. But putting it simply, here is the comment. Timestamp 12/24. Why is supporting Amazon such a bad thing? Genuinely asking. And very fair question. And I want to answer how, in the context of specifically the publishing space, why supporting Amazon tends to be feeding what is not a great situation. But before we get into that, I want to make something abundantly clear. No one's going to be mad at you for continuing to use Amazon in your daily life. Hell, I have to use it because some of the books I need to review here on the channel for my job are exclusively sold on their platforms, which is kind of a part of the problem. But beyond that, I do not expect en masse my entire audience to just cut out the most convenient shopping option in America and or other parts of the world too, just because of some booktubers ranting. But if I can convince a few people to perhaps change their book buying habits or even just save what's happening to their current ebooks, well then this video is well worth making. But before I get into how it is affecting you all, the readers, I'd actually like to first start with how Amazon is specifically screwing over authors. And that is through market domination, royalties that are not up to industry standards, and maybe most of all, exclusivity programs that turn into traps. Now, just in case you're watching this video, know absolutely nothing. If you are an author who is self-publishing your book, you are absolutely going to want to get it on the Kindle platform. And when you do this, you are offered two deals. The first of which is to go exclusive on Kindle. The second which is to not and allow your book to be sold on other platforms online as well. If you choose the exclusivity route, you are offered not only higher royalties, but also better promotion in the algorithm. And on top of that, there are then incentives to put your own money back into the Kindle system again, kind of like a fucked up version of the modern company store, to keep your book trending in its algorithms to hopefully find more readers. And this has become such a dominant issue, especially in the starting out author space, that if you want to get discovered naturally by the largest potential audience, you essentially have to agree to go exclusive through the Kindle store, because even if you do not, it will be a vast majority of your sales, and the difference in royalties you are giving up by not exclusively going there will absolutely demolish any other sales you can potentially make. And keep in mind, I'm talking about ebooks specifically now, but this is also true for audiobooks, and with how Amazon's moving in the self-publishing space and trying to actually get people to do print books through them, it seems to be lined up for the actual physical book space as well. And you might be hearing that and thinking, well, at least they're going to be paying authors a competitive rate, right? Well, if you go the exclusive route, kind of, but if you don't, absolutely not.
When you're slapped, you'll take it and like it.
Because when it comes to digital media in the modern day and age, the general standard for the creators of the media is to keep 70%, while the platform keeps 30%. But here's the thing with Kindle. If you don't go exclusive, that royalty percentage is halved, and you only get to keep 35%. And with many authors I know who have gone not exclusive to Kindle, they still report seeing 80-ish% of their sales still happening in the Kindle ecosystem, meaning they're just making half as much money as they should on books, and they almost all regret it. And just to make it clear by comparison, Kobo, a direct competitor that has their own ebook market to Amazon, pays authors 70% royalties non-exclusively and does not even have an exclusive publishing option on their platform. Amazon dominates the industry so thoroughly that authors have no choice but to accept worse deals just to reach readers, or get the same deal but make their work only available through Amazon, blocking out readers who don't want to buy from Ozempic Dr. Evil. Except these practices don't just stop with authors, because you might be sitting here and going, Daniel, that sucks for authors, but I love my Kindle and I'm just a reader. It's not affecting me directly. And that is where you're absolutely wrong. Because if you do exclusively go for Amazon everything, you are technically kind of getting a good deal on the books you purchase, right? Well,
no, not at all, actually.
Especially with the recent changes to how Kindle is handling you, quote unquote, purchasing a book through their system, I would argue absolutely not. Because now, books you purchase in the Kindle store can only be read on Amazon-approved devices and are no longer going to be shareable over USB type cables, meaning you're locked in. And on top of that, you have never and never truly will own any ebook you purchase on pretty much any of these platforms. It's similar to how if you bought music through iTunes, oh, it's yours, except not really, and you certainly can't give it to anybody else. And this change was designed specifically so that you cannot back up your ebook library, and if they want to take away a book from you, they absolutely can. And that's a huge part of this. Amazon reserves the right to not only revoke a book you have purchased, but also censor and change it without letting you know. And they have done so in the past. So this in combination means that authors who want to be discovered have no choice except to essentially publish through the Kindle space if they want to have even a remotely competitive chance. And on top of that, you as a reader, to access them at all, have to buy into this system that is trying to lock you into it and prevent you from actually owning the media you're spending your money on. This is another great example of why physical media in the digital age is so important. And let's even take it to another hypothetical. An author you like and support is finally gaining traction and has a large enough following through other platforms that they no longer even want to sell on Amazon. You as a reader can then lose your entire collection of that author's work if they pull it from the Kindle store. And it's only because they wanted to take an ethical stand, and you end up getting screwed. And if you remember the Sanderson problem that was brought up here on the channel a couple of years ago, that actually wasn't really solved, though I do want to give Sanderson credit. He did make Audible and by extension Amazon blink. That's an incredible feat. I could show up with a machete and Tommy gun at Jeff Bezos' house, and all that would happen is a sniper's going to take me out. The fact that he managed to actually get Audible to change a little is massively impressive, but they're still not exactly at fair rates. Let's get into it. By 2030, the audiobook industry is predicted to be a
over $50
billion a year market. And currently, right now, Audible owns 60% of it. Yes, 60% of audiobooks that are sold through Audible. And that means an Audible credit is the #1 way people are purchasing audiobooks, period. And in the exact same way that Kindle gives you better rates if you go exclusive, Audible does the same here. And anecdotally, I can even attest to this because when I was semi-trad publishing my last book, Neon Ghosts, I tried to push Podium to not go exclusively through Audible and wanted it to be available on other platforms. And I was told flat out, no, that will be a deal breaker for us.
There's no deal, Sporto.
Because even the publishing houses or publishing companies that exist know if you want to be competitive in these spaces now, you absolutely have to be exclusive within the Amazon ecosystem. And the royalty rates for authors on Audible are even worse than Kindle still, after they improved it after Sanderson did what he did. Because as of 2025, Audible still only gives you a 50% royalty, not 70 if you go exclusive. And if you don't go exclusive, that is cut down once again to 30%. And no, it's not that, oh, the audiobook space is somehow special, and no, it shouldn't be 70% to begin with, because Libro FM, an audiobook competitor, does give authors, despite being a smaller company, a 70% royalty for non-exclusive rights. Again, Amazon knows they are so dominant within this space, they are able to screw over authors and give them less money for their work, and just holding up a middle finger the entire time they make you sign that contract, because they know you know it's a bad deal. They just control that much of the fucking market. Now, I'm well aware that I am a known leftist yelling about a giant corporation here on BookTube. There are going to be people who just completely dismiss my opinion because of that, and to some extent, I understand. But I would make the case that this goes beyond just basic political ideology, and you can even look at US history to prove so. The Bell system, which was broken up for being too dominant in the telecommunications space, had very similar numbers in terms of its domination. It owned, depending on what sources you look at, between 85 to 94% of telecommunication services in the United States before the government took antitrust actions. And there's the thing, they didn't even have the advantage of algorithms in the internet today to force these exclusivity and marketing strategies that go well beyond what anyone could imagine back in the 80s and before. And you can absolutely say, well, Daniel, that's a telecommunications company, this is books, therefore you're comparing apples to oranges. One, I can compare apples and oranges all fucking day. And two, I would argue that books, literature, the cornerstones of knowledge in our culture still to this day, need to be protected more aggressively from being controlled and swayed by a single company than telecommunications, not less. This is a single company having a gargantuan sway over not the sale of games, movies, shows, communications through a telephone, literally books. Over 50% of print book sales, over 60% of audiobook sales, and over 80% of ebook sales, which is a huge percentage of books that are sold. A company that has been caught abusing its workers, manipulating its own algorithms to benefit itself, openly using anti-competitive practices that have gotten them in legal trouble. That's not even mentioning the countless thousands of businesses that Amazon has crushed. And it's gotten to the point where even conservative websites, like The American Conservative, are taking note and writing about how Amazon is even ruining the culture of customer-to-seller relationships by doing things like cutting off any ability for customers to reach out to sellers on their platforms. Instead, of course, just wanting you to return and send things to their gargantuan warehouses. Yay. This is something where you don't want an individual who is aligned with any political side to be able to censor, revoke, and manipulate the way books as a whole are marketed, sold, and consumed. Especially because, as we've seen, if they are called out by a powerful player in the space like Brandon Sanderson for their unfair royalty practices, they will simply perceivably fix the problem enough to make it go away before just continuing right along with their current method of doing things to make the web of being caught in their ecosystem as sticky as it possibly can be. And this is why I have said repeatedly here on the channel, it is not the big 5 publishers anymore, it is the big 6, and the new player Amazon has more power than any of the rest. It's how they are able to devalue every single one of the e-readers they have sold by taking away a feature you originally had, and actually devalue all of the ebooks you have bought, and know that even if you are a little bit mad, it's just going to be a blip on the radar as they continue to make billions in a market that is growing exponentially year by year. But today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform here to encourage and educate entrepreneurs on how to stand out online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand like myself, Squarespace is here to make it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from content to products to time. Not only can you learn the tips and tricks of the trade, but they have so many features to help you really get your business off the ground running. Their asset library allows you to upload, organize, and access all of your content from one place, as well as manage all your files from one central hub and use them across a massive Squarespace ecosystem. And if you don't have a background in coding, do not worry. Squarespace's flexible website templates provide you with a massive catalog to get started from, and then their Fluid engine allows you to just drag and drop various features to customize whatever your website will be to fit exactly your needs. Use it to unlock your creativity when presenting your brand. Whether it's blogs, email campaigns, appointment scheduling, gated member areas, they've got everything you need and more. So head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial. When you're ready to make your first purchase, go to squarespace.com/Daniel Greene for 10% off your first purchase. So getting back to what started this video, answering this comment, all of the things I have said are why it is generally, especially in booktube circles and things along those lines, considered not the best to be a supporter of Amazon, while also admittedly it kind of being unavoidable because, you know, they're the size of the Bell system. And I also know from talking to other booktubers and book talkers who have agreed to take sponsorships from the likes of Audible or Kindle, they're willing to pay people like me way over market rates, insultingly to the authors they're screwing over, for ad spots so that they can just always be in the conversation of where you go to buy your next book. And it might feel a little useless now. Like, what can we possibly do? They are literally getting to the point where your favorite authors might be exclusively publishing through their platforms. I have seen, and I'm not saying I agree with this, a whole lot of people commenting something along the lines, well, if me buying is not owning, then pirating isn't stealing. And I have to say here that I do not endorse pirating your author's books, even if they are restricted to one ecosystem you do not want to step into. It sucks, but I would just say, hey, maybe wait until eventually that author decides to no longer be exclusive on the KDP platform. Pirating books just puts a bad taste personally in my mouth. Obviously, I'm biased. I am also an author. But on top of that, I can just encourage you to, one, go for physical copies of books more than ever. Even if someone's exclusive on KDP, they are going to be selling print books in multiple ways outside of even Amazon, despite how much Amazon's trying to make it so that people exclusively print their books through them as well. They just haven't become as dominant there yet. And if you are determined to continue to keep using an e-reader, Kobo, as I've said many times before, is a wonderful company that pays fair rates to their authors, as well as letting you sideload in books you've bought from other environments, and even have library hook-ins, especially if you're also going to go with Libro FM, which also has better royalty practices for your audiobooks, which also, again, will hook into local libraries. But beyond that, something I've gratefully seen more and more people just in the world start doing is go to bookstores. Go to specifically used, locally owned bookstores. Oftentimes, they will also have some form of setup to help with audiobooks, but on top of that, you can get, for the price of an ebook, oftentimes a paperback, and it's beautiful, smells great, and is just as satisfying to read, especially because it's used. Maybe it's already a little bit banged up. You don't got to worry about charging it or anything. Yet that's not exactly the most satisfying conclusion to this, because nothing we can do is really going to stop this. And I would argue that Amazon is now at the size that it's going to take federal intervention to get any kind of serious, substantial change done. But with the current administration and the way things are, I highly doubt that is in our near future. Thank you. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Try and feel better. Peace.